king of podcasts, proudly presents The Broadcasters Podcast. A weekly media commentary talking about traditional and digital media headlines and talking to the content creators out front and behind the scenes. Here is the king of podcasts. Thanks for joining me for another Broadcasters Podcast, episode 146 here at broadcasterspodcast.com. I'm so glad that all of you that have found this little show have been enjoying, and hopefully you enjoy all the interviews that I bring onto the program as of late. And what I've been trying to do, I know I've been taking time off not to do so many interviews. I did book a number of interviews so far, and I actually did, I think, 4 of them over the last week. I'm going to give you a heads up what we're going to be having coming up here on the program, because I have interviews basically all lined up and ready to go from now until the end of the year. So we're going to have some good interview heavy episodes, because we know at the end of the year things start slowing down a little bit. The holidays will start changing things up, and we have to wait and see what happens, where I think when the start of the next year comes up, we'll probably see our entertainment come back to some kind of a normalcy, or definitely get back to full speed again. We already know that some of the TV shows are starting to come back and produce again. A number of TV shows are going to be coming back, so you're going to get some of that content coming back up because people were holding off. Movies will be coming back once again. We'll get that all ramped up and ready to go. So Ellen DeGeneres is going to have a limited audience now to go and come back to her studio. So we're going to start seeing the gradual return. People don't want to just keep going into the quarantine environment and feeling like that it's this weird dystopian type world that we're living in right now, the bizarro world of COVID from March and April. They don't want to be able to see that looking like that on television like it was in March and April. People want to go and look like it is going forward. Again, people want to go and move forward, I think. That's what it is. Yeah, we want to wait for a vaccine. Sure, we need to go and make sure to continue to socially distance and wear masks and all that good stuff. Absolutely. Continue to do that. It's what we should do all together until people are feeling that they can feel safe getting out of their homes without feeling the need of, feeling that there's going to be a fear that something could happen where they could be infected. And I understand that. I can understand where they're coming from. And it's not just the fact that people might want to go ahead and make sure that they're protecting themselves, but they're also protecting loved ones, which so much of the point is, at least for myself, is the fact of wearing a mask is because of the fact that I have older parents and I see them a lot. So I'd rather go ahead and protect them, and anybody else in that same nature. It's just protecting the elderly more or less, or those that are, much more susceptible. And that's what it comes down to. Anyway, off the COVID run, let me tell you about who we have on the next couple of episodes of the Broadcasters Podcast. So what I have so far is really fascinating. I did interviews, first of all, with Jimmy Rodriguez. He is a former music journalist and ex-radio personality he's now the host of the J-Rod Concerts podcast. I'll have him coming up down the line. I also did an episode with Warren Cohn. He is CEO and founder of Herald PR. Herald PR, you might know, they are famous in terms of influencer marketing and crisis management. These are the same PR people that did represent at one time Harvey Weinstein, Paula Deen, and one of the real housewives of New York City. Then I also spoke with Stephanie Andujar, who's an actress, singer, dancer, and producer. You might have heard some of her credits, including Precious, the famous movie with Gabrielle DeBay. You might remember her also. Maybe you might have seen her in appearances as Little Rosa in Orange is the New Black. She was also featured in shows like Blind Spot, Law & Order SVU, and Blue Bloods, among other shows. And I also spoke with Lauren Collin, entertainment reporter and host of the Red Carpet Rendezvous podcast, giving me a lot of details when it comes to what was going on in New York City and how entertainment, from music to Broadway to television to movies, were all being affected by what's happening in the Big Apple. So there you go. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 interviews in less than the last couple of weeks. It's been busy. I did a lot of work, a lot of prep, a lot of research. So again, looks like I got 5 interviews after I complete my interview with Muyinza Kasirye, which I will be continuing the interview tonight here on the program. Part 2 of my interview with him, a much longer portion, a 30-minute portion of it, comes up next. And again, he is a black media producer, artist, entrepreneur, and owner of APRT Media. Runs a media production company that does photography and videography, primarily in the entertainment space. He travels between LA, New York City, and Boston to do work. So we'll get back to talking to him. And like I said, I had the interview with Grace Elizabeth Hill last week. That was courtesy of the Miami Book Fair, but because of time constraints, I wanted to go and push that interview up. So I did take a little break from the interview with Muyinza to go ahead and run it, but I will be running the last two parts of the interview consecutively this week and next week here on the program. So I have all that for you, and they're great conversations. I had a lot of fun, really enjoyed who we talked to, and it is nice to go and get these conversations and just learn a lot. And I hope you guys will stick around. If you're just listening for the headlines, I hope you will go and take a listen to what we have over there and check for yourself, because I think it was some great stuff also. On the YouTube channel, I also released all the interviews that I had previously. They're all up on my YouTube feed. You can actually catch the complete interviews, no commercials, commercial free. You can find that over at youtube.com/JBRASCO951. And by the way, if you don't want to hear commercials, I understand if you don't, but of course I try to keep them out and keep them as limited as possible here on the program. But it is to help to monetize the show, and I'm actually able to put a little bit aside to put towards the production costs and towards other things that I want to do with the program. So that bit help. It really does help a lot. So I hope you'll understand where I'm coming from there, and I really do appreciate all of you that do listen through the feed and check it that way. But also, if you want to go ahead and check it out for yourself, I have extra content over my YouTube channel. youtube.com/JBRASCO951. And by the way, it's not like there's a huge subscribership on there, but that's because I leave all the content above 18 years old, because I might curse once in a while. I might drop an F-bomb, or the content might be a little bit sexual or graphic in nature, because my When I'm Not Podcasting series is very open. I keep it coming wide open. So, it's more for adults. What can I say? So a couple of headlines I want to go ahead and jump into today before I get to my interview with Muyinza Kasirye. Music censorship. Story I want to take from the New York Times they put out. So they're referring to Cardi B's WAP. Cardi B and Megan Thee Stallion. Why they want to go and not put Megan Thee Stallion as part of the song, because they're both on it with equal verses, I don't know. But New York Times reporter here is Ben Cesaro. All right. Scandalized parents and politicians ushered in warning labels in the 1980s. Now making clean versions of explicit songs means taking advantage of every possible revenue stream. Well, truth is, songs are always put out in clean versions because of radio. It's always been that way. So it's nothing new. And somebody's always going to be able to do that. And the truth is, even if a radio station wants to play a song and they need to go and clean it up, they can do it themselves. Pretty simple. I mean, when I worked over at the Spanish radio station I was working at, which some of the reggaeton songs did have some language on it, even in Spanish, I had to go ahead and edit the songs myself, because you couldn't find many clean versions of it, because in Spanish radio sometimes the music might get carried away. But one of the people that was there, that was helping me in the programming, really wanted to make sure the FCC didn't catch up on it. So they figured, let's be safe, and do that. Now, with that said, they spoke with Doc Winter. He's Vice President of Urban Hip Hop Programming Strategy at APRT Media. And for his radio background, just so you know, his background goes back. He's most been known for doing program directing for a lot of different stations, namely Power 105.1 in New York City, Real 92.3 in Los Angeles, V101.5 in Jacksonville, and The Beat, which has stations under that moniker in Houston, Miami, Tampa, and Nashville, and has worked with the likely personalities such as The Breakfast Club, so that's Charlamagne the God and others, Big Boy from Big Boy's Neighborhood and in Los Angeles, Steve Harvey, and Keith Sweat. That's what he does. Now, Doc Winter talked about hearing WAP for the first time and says, quote, "It hits you at the very beginning and like, whoa, and then it just keeps going and going and going. Thank God we have systems in place that prevented that record from hitting the airways." So WAP hit the airways, streaming services, in a big way. Number one on Billboard's Hot 100 for 4 weeks, non-consecutive, because BTS came in between. 1.1 billion clicks on streaming platforms. An instant social media phenomenon. remixes, memes galore, and so much more. So it became a political lightning rod. They refer to Ben Shapiro, who made a lot of comments about the song, calling it a really, 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 really vulgar embodiment of liberal hypocrisy. Okay. Says popularity was partly earned from one of the music industry's oldest boogaloos, self-censorship. Before WAP could be put on the radio, its most explicit verbiage was pruned by Cardi B's engineers. And the label had sent out a clean version of the song. It was still too racy for broadcast, according to Winter, and he asked for 9 additional last-minute edits. The YouTube video has the clean version. So the success of WAP highlighted one of the music industry's dirty little secrets, that even in an age of rampant vulgarity and 35 years since the crackdown on lyrics by the Washington elite, thank you, Tipper Gore, and the wonderful the stickers that went on for explicit lyrics, which made the albums more buyable. Because people like me saw the explicit lyrics tag, I said, well, that's what I want. I don't want the clean one. I want that one. And that's the CD I want with that tag on the jewel case. So with that, it's happening much more in just all music where vulgarity is allowed because of streaming. And since that has been all songs, if you hear any pop songs right now that are not on radio, there definitely are vulgarities in it. A lot of them. Just happens. The Bowdlerizing, you guys with these Scrabble words, New York Times, of pop songs remains deeply ingrained in the work of artists and their marketers. Today, most major releases that have some naughty words, including the latest from Taylor Swift and even Stevie Wonder, also come out in censored versions. Decades ago, that may have been done in part to avoid political controversy. Now, business is a driving force as labels chase down every click and playlist placement to maximize song streaming income. They go back to the history of it. They said Little Richard's Tutti Frutti in the 1950s. I don't know what exact date it was. So then they go to Tipper Gore. She started the crusade, the Parents Music Resource Center. You know the story. First started with a Prince song that scandalized their group. These Karens, the earliest Karens in 1985 were Tipper Gore. Pretty obvious. Which led to committee hearings, of which the likes of legendary rocker Frank Zappa said at the time, it is censorship. Now, they tried to talk about that race played a complex role. Black art has always been policed aggressively, particularly in music genres such as jazz to rock to hip-hop. But rock and metal came under fire in the 1980s. Seemingly anything on the radio was a potential target. In the 1985 Senate hearings, John Denver defended his song Rocky Mountain High against accusations it glorified drug abuse. What? We know what the sticker. Move along. And that was the complications in the market. All the big box retailers, Walmart, Best Buy, and Target, would sell the records, sell them on CDs in the 1990s to a lot. And the record company's solution was produce copies of albums scrubbed of their most provocative vocabulary. And self-censorship followed with profanities and violent lyrics often simply deleted, leaving hit songs dotted with brief silences. Eminem's longtime manager Paul Rosenberg says we used to call it Swiss cheese. Now, in time, as big box retailers' power of the industry faded and the digital disruption basically came in, and social mores and media standards evolved, the pressure for clean versions waned. Although edited versions are still released for many new albums, there are puzzling exceptions. Recent release by major acts like Travis Scott, Lil Uzi Vert, Roddy Ricch. They spelled Roddy Ricch wrong. Is it two C's? I don't know. I don't think it is. Tyler, the Creator, to name a few, came out in only explicit editions. Lil Peep's rap Everybody's Everything did not have a clean version, but Triple X Tentacion's Bad Vibes Forever, which came out after the rapper's killing, did. Record executives and artist managers offered various explanations for the inconsistency. Many were not willing to speak on the record. Some musicians say they object on principle to the censoring of their work. Green Day, for example, refused to edit its albums American Idiot and 21st Century Breakdown and forfeited sales at Walmart. In the streaming age, music can be made and released so quickly that little time is left for edits. Those albums may not get a clean version until days or weeks after their initial release, or never. If no edited version is available, radio stations or random YouTube users will simply make their own. Correct. Correct. The artistry of clean edits has made huge progress since the Swiss cheese days. Jason Joshua, mixing engineer who has worked on releases by Jay-Z, Nicki Minaj, Rihanna, and many others, including Megan Thee Stallion, described an elaborate toolkit of sound effects, stretched out sibilants, and patched vowels to preserve the musical fingerprint of an altered word. Anything to give the illusion to the brain that the word's still there, even if you don't hear the explicit word itself. Music consumer landscape is now rife with family streaming plans and parental content filtering. For customers who set their devices to weed out explicit material, Apple and Amazon automatically substitute edited versions of songs when they are not available, skip them when they don't have any. Most of the time, every Spotify track on the Rap Caviar playlist is explicit. But there's always clean alternatives available. As a matter of fact, the Billboard Hot 100, which I listen to, has it all explicit. But they do have people that will curate playlists with clean versions all the time. Interesting part of their story, because I remember the Senate hearings, and I remember all the stuff that was going on when it came to the Parents Music Resource Center and the songs that were really raunchy beforehand. And for those of you who might have heard me on a When I'm Not Podcasting series, that talked about Cardi B's WAP, which I will take a clip of this and put it on that program. I talked about this, about the songs we had that were much more dirty and raunchier before. Interesting we're talking about that now, because WAP is not really so much in the lexicon right now. It's not like it's a very viral hit. I mean, it's on the way out. Like, it's still not a top 5 song right now. Don't get me wrong. But it doesn't have that kind of, it's kind of lost the luster already. I think people are starting to kind of wane on listening to it as we speak. Maybe not on our radio, because radio comes in late, of course. So we had 2 Live Crew's arrest, Body Count's Cop Killer. The brouhaha around WAP was a jarring throwback, and the way that seems quaint. Rock and rap were once vilified as threats to basic civility. So the whole thing is, I can understand where they think censorship is good business, because they think there are still some people, they want to try to go and reach out to the younger audience, or to those that do not want to try to put out that kind of music and keep it clean for whatever reason. It's not that big of a deal. I think the way they put it was really not a big deal either. I think they just took Cardi B's WAP, or Megan Thee Stallion and Cardi B's song WAP, and really decided to say, okay, let's just, take it as a clickbait, New York Times, and put the story out there for censorship. It's not, oh, what a good idea. We're talking about censorship and FCC and Section 230 and Twitter and Facebook and, big tech. Big tech. Well, that's what they're trying to do here. So the story that they come up with, it's not like it's anything new, but it is a rollback in time that they're saying there's still the reason for clean music to still be out there, for clean versions of songs to still be made, and that the technology has changed since. But again, you'd think with streaming, we have a much more of a freedom now. But again, there's still room to have 2 versions of a song. It's not like you're being censored to not be able to hear the explicit version of a song and not losing all of its value, which I think there is by some of the explicit lyrics on a particular song. I want to go into a couple other items here in music when it comes to radio and when it comes to cable TV. But I want to take radio next. This story from InsideRadio.com with the industry rag. Radio's opportunity in the $63 billion content marketing space. So basically, it's trying to say, let's see, what can radio do to try to make some money out of the market that they are so far behind. Content marketing. Advertisers spent on it $63.3 billion. A decline of 1.5%. With COVID, that's pretty good. Now, radio had $2.23 million spent on content marketing on the airways, a 3.5% share of content marketing of that $63 billion pie. That's horrible. 3%. Think about what it would have been years ago. This is from a study called Sizing the Content Marketing Opportunity, released by Borrell Associates in collaboration with the Local Media Consortium, Local Media Association, and the Facebook Journalism Project. Measuring how big the content marketing space is, what types of benefit most, and what kinds of businesses are most inclined to utilize it, and at what rates. So the idea is, if you have content, and you have advertisers that want to go and reach out and support that content, this is what they're talking about. So out of the 11 media distribution channels that are tracked, Digital platforms now make up the most, 2/3 of advertising spent on their content. TV, 10.4%. That's network and cable. Direct mail, 7%. And other print, 5.4%. Then it's regular network TV. Cable TV, 2.7%. Newspapers, less than that. Out of home, cinema, directories, and telemarketing, under 1%. Look at that. There's no reason why radio can't make more money on content marketing, but the content sucks. That's the point of this story that I'm getting from it. So Burrell Associate CEO Gordon Burrell says that while it currently attracts only a fraction of the market, radio can play a big role in the content marketing movement. He says, quote, radio already has a significant piece of the equation that competing media are having to spend money to build out, an ideas generating unit within the advertising department. Most stations have promotions departments designed to get creative with advertisers. Content marketing opportunities are a natural outgrowth. For example, when a retail location is a grand opening, rarely would a newspaper or TV station provide any sort of coverage. Radio would fill up the heating tanks, roll out the remote, and have store managers drop in and talk about how things are going. But do you ever hear that anymore? Do you hear any radio stations going out, oh, we're going to be live at this car dealer. We're going to be live at this place. We're going to be live at this place. And that was before COVID. No, it doesn't happen. Rarely, if at all. More small businesses plan to make content marketing part of their marketing mix. That means they're going to start spending more money on advertising, small businesses, because they started opening more back up. They need the help. Now, Gordon Burrell says the growth in content marketing as part of a media revolution that portends to restore power to the hands of the ones paying most of the bills, advertisers. They're sort of pissed that you don't consider their grand opening a newsworthy story or worthy of doing a remote from their parking lot. Demand is expected to increase as businesses looking to get the word out about a product, service, or level of expertise realize their internal information holds marketing value. Local media companies have a natural advantage in the tapping into the movie. I don't know, man. You know how many times I've actually listened to a radio ad that made me want to go someplace? Rarely. The last few things I wanted to go to as a result of making me want to go ahead and catch something has been on Instagram. You know, I look at restaurants all the time. I can't tell you how many times I looked at a restaurant and I went to the damn place because the Instagram had a page and they had these sponsored ads all over the place. And Instagram was great. I used to catch it all the time. So that's the whole point. Radio doesn't need so much of that, but they also need to do something more where they don't have the talent that can draw the people in. And the radio station doesn't have that much power either. So they're saying there's a chance to grow it. But what are they doing? They need to improve their content in order to get the advertisers on board. Again, it's a content issue. So it's really telling about how bad their content is. I'll tell you the same thing for television. Same thing for cable TV. They're not getting the content out there. They don't have what it needs, what it takes to get the advertisers on board. You want to support the programming. Radio. You want money, don't you? You greedy fucks. Don't you want money? Then change your content. Quit just putting on this homogenized bullshit. Look, it's local. How many times can you have a morning show that can go out, do remotes, do events all the damn time? Why don't you do something about it? Anyways, I won't hold my breath about that. One other story I want to go and bring up before I go to Muyinza and part two of my interview with him. CNBC put out a story. Media companies, media executives are finally accepting the decline of cable TV, plotting a new path forward. So the idea is right now is that the three large U.S. media companies, the corporates, by the way, expect the number of U.S. households that subscribe to traditional pay TV bundles to fall about 50 million in the next 5 years. And at 50 million subscribers, it's unclear the current pay TV model can survive without falling further. And because of the streaming media, the jury's still out if investors will breathe new life in the traditional media companies. This projected decline in just 5 years of just 25 million subscribers. It will mean $25 billion in subscription revenue plus associated advertising losses for the largest U.S. media companies. That's Disney's Comcast Universal and AT&T's Warner Media, among others. In the last 3 months, Disney, NBC, Universal, Warner Media, Viacom, CBS have all announced major reorganizations, replacing old leaders, consolidating divisions, laying off tens of thousands of employees, and pivoting to streaming video, the digital disruption. And so now the corporates are downsizing. That's what they're doing, downsizing for digital streaming, because they're not going to use all the wherewithal to go ahead and use the traditional established product. That's just going to be now a secondary platform. So over-the-air network cable TV have officially become secondary platforms. They're not proprietary. They're secondary now. Streaming is the thing. American viewers can now choose streaming services from among the major players: Disney Plus, Warner Media's HBO Max, NBC Universal's Peacock, Viacom, CBS's soon-to-be-called Paramount Plus, formerly CBS All Access, Discovery Plus, and AMC Plus. Prices ranging from free to $15 a month. So the idea is to hope enough people will sign up for subscription streaming services to make up for cable TV subscriber losses. So this is affecting the cable channels, because what are they going to run? Because there are now shows that are going to be changing off. For more than a decade, TNT and TBS ratings had lived off of reruns of hit broadcast shows: Seinfeld, Friends, Family Guy, The Office, and so on. But now, Netflix, Hulu, and Amazon Prime Video have acquired digital rights to the same catalog of reruns. Instead of having to tune to a cable network at a certain time, viewers can consume entire seasons of shows on demand without commercial interruptions. The cable bundle had peaked not too long ago. But now consumers can't select and pay for cable TV a la carte. They have to buy dozens at a time. Media executives have referred to it long as a golden goose. So media companies who sell channels into the bundle get paid whether or not anyone's watching. Streaming services already have enough library content to thrive in a smaller ecosystem of streaming services. With Disney Plus, you have decades of kid-friendly movies, all the Disney movies, TV shows, plus the Pixar, Star Wars, and Marvel franchises. 60 million subscribers so far. That was what they expected to get by 2024. They already reached that range. Netflix is actually putting their pricing up $1. The standard plan is not going to be $14 a month. It's going up for the first time in 2 years. So can smaller players compete for new originals against Netflix, Amazon, Apple, companies with massive balance sheets, to have the best content going forward? So one executive says these companies are competing against Netflix and Amazon with more scale for both subscription and advertising at a global level. They're all going to be collapsed. Only Disney will have enough subscribers and global scale under a distinctive family brand to make it. And that's what I've been saying before as well. Netflix, Amazon, Apple. Amazon will survive, but can Netflix survive? Even with an increase, will people start staying away from that? And they might say, you know what, we don't want to go and hold on to it if they make the price too much. Even Disney will need to keep growing to make their numbers make up for their impending cable TV losses. Each lost cable customer costs the company about $17.62 each month, excluding advertising. Most of that has to do with ESPN, which commands about $10 a month per subscriber on its own. And we talked about it last week, that they've lost, 10 million subscribers. Oh, no, they lost more than that in the last 10 years. Like a tenth of their audience. No, maybe more than that. I forgot what the number was, but it was really bad. So media companies are shifting their best content to the new streaming services. The result for consumers is higher and higher prices for lower and lower quality. And networks like ESPN, keeping millions of Americans hooked to cable today, may need to pull back on programming costs if too many people cancel. The best path forward to media companies, a CNBC article says, is if Americans suddenly decide to stop canceling cable. Well, that's not going to happen. What are you talking about? Like the prices are going to go down. Come on. That's not going to happen. Netflix has proved that market validation is more important than business fundamentals in terms of growing valuation. They've burned through billions of cash for years, spending borrowed money on content to grab subscribers, and investors haven't cared. Maybe media companies won't have to worry about how to replace revenue from each subscriber with a corresponding streaming subscriber. Perhaps simply showing there's a new growth engine that looks more like Netflix will push investors toward valuing the entire industry higher. But they'll probably go ahead and make the prices go more. Watch out. There's a whole lot more to say about this, but again, I'll leave the link for all of you to go and check out for yourselves. There's a lot to be said about it. But again, it's the thought that now there's a big concern, and investors on Wall Street are worried about it. Will they invest Again, if streaming media is going to be where it is, the door gets open. And the truth is, the corporates are not that good at running this game yet because they're not. Now, what could very well happen is Netflix and Hulu. Well, Hulu's already got a stake in it, but somebody could just buy out Hulu altogether. I believe Disney already has most of it or just a partial of it. But either which way, Netflix could get consolidated. Somebody might buy them up. Just realize that. And who knows what happens with Pluto TV and other programs, other platforms like Tubi that are already out there that could be turned around into something else. I think what definitely happens is cable TV needs to get drop pretty soon. And what the cable companies need to do is they need to start making deals where like Viacom has Pluto TV and others, Fox and whatever has Tubi. They better start putting all their channels up on streaming right now and get their advertising from there, even though they're not going to get much money. But cable boxes continue to be cut. And there's a lot more people realizing they can do that right now. Pretty simple. Just saying. All right, let's move along into my featured interview again with Muyinza Kasirye. Part 2, we continue talking about all the issues when it comes to diversity, equity, and inclusion in media. That's what we've talked about for the bulk of it. But first part was really to go and talk about his work, specifically in APRT Media, and just working as an artist, entrepreneur, and a media producer. So we'll talk now into the issues of equity, diversity, inclusion, really from the standard of the content creators, and then we'll move into what the establishment, what the higher ups, the people in the conference rooms are talking about. We go to both of those dynamics. Here's part 2 of my interview with Muyinza Kasirye here on the Broadcasters Podcast. Let's go into questions real quick, Muyinza. Yeah. So business2community.com recently wrote, now more than ever, businesses of all sizes are investing time and energy into diversity, equity, and inclusion programs and denouncing racism, and many are paving the way for deeper acceptance and change. Businesses who embrace diversity and inclusion as part of their corporate culture will often create smart business strategies, boost their financial performance, outperform less diverse peers on profitability, and make their employees feel valued and included. 2/3 of job seekers consider workplace diversity an important factor when considering employment opportunities, and consumers are paying attention to diversity in communications too. So I want to know what your overall take is, how you see DEI in the media in terms of the industry, people going into the space and getting to work in the media. Do you see real change right now happening in your view, or are companies just pumping out a lot of performative allyship?
It's performative, a lot of performative.
I agree.
Because the thing is that it's, in order to create the real change, real things need to happen. And so it's fine to say a lot of things, and there's a lot of symbolic things that are being done, but there isn't real change. And the real change has to happen in the power structure. The real change has to happen because, for instance, I myself as so you just said 2/3 of people consider diversity in the workplace important. So 2/3 of those people could be HR people, and 2/3 of those people might see my resume come across the desk, or my deck come across the desk, and they see my name, which is the name that they don't know, and they pick another one, and statistically that does happen. So it's kind of the structurally it needs to change. It needs to, the changing the urban and getting rid of the Black voice actors, or getting rid of voice actors that aren't Black, voicing Black actors. Like, we don't really care about that. We care about being able to have real power and being able to create real opportunity for ourselves and for other Black people. And we are either not put in those positions often, and or don't receive the same level of opportunity as our white counterparts.
But now here's the thing, Muyinza. Instead of fighting against the establishment to get a seat on the table, here's my thing. This is where I look at Robert Johnson, who created BET. I look at Byron Allen now with Entertainment Studios. And the things they've been able to do. I mean, goddamn, Byron Allen just bought Weather Channel. He's been making movies now and bankrolling them, and he's doing really well. I see where instead of having to try to go and just fight against, we already have the digital disruption, which has already messed up the mainstream establishment, the traditional establishment. I would rather not go ahead and go into that part and try to conform, because then what happens is, this is where I think people don't understand, because we might want to encourage DEI. The problem is that going to still be the intent of that person once they get in the door? Because I think it changes once they get in the door, because they'll see how things are and they might just abandon what happens after the fact, or if they don't, they're at least trying to like play a little bit of happy talk. I believe. I just think taking it upon ourselves and finding the entrepreneurs that are going to build their own companies and say, well, you know what? Fuck this. I'll do it on my own.
Yeah. Well, I do agree with that, but I do agree with that. And I actually am a believer of that. But I'm telling you, as someone on the ground, it is an absolutely exhausting fight. For instance, to give you, I work with and came up with several, I have several white counterparts. Like I have several white friends that do the exact same thing that I do. Mm-hmm. And in our experience doing what we do, there are key things that make it easier for them. As far as connections, relationships, and just the general, there is a tangible, people want to help themselves realistically. And so the reason why, even though, yes, build your own thing, what it takes to do that as a Black person and what you're up against is insane. And it is exhausting, because you have to not only be Black, you also have to do the thing that you do. Whereas you just get to do the thing you do. So all of my white counterparts, they only do this job. I am also watching myself get murdered on TV every other week. I am also dealing with banks that, treat me terribly or won't give me loans, or, I deal with extra. I deal with more. It's more arduous.
But I'll tell you what, I'm going to tell you, I see some of the artists that have come in the 90s and what they've come in to be able to do, Russell Simmons, or say a Jay-Z or Beyonce or P. Diddy, or Diddy. Yeah. And I'm just saying to myself, there are those or Kanye, they have made it, and they do, but they follow the beat of their own drum. I don't think they're being manipulated too much. I think they absolutely are doing it on their own. And yes. I mean, I respect the fuck out of seeing when people were able to go ahead and buck the system. That's my whole thing. I don't just, yes. I want diversity, equity, inclusion. I'm a person of merit and performance, but then also I want, it's because that's the money that's being used, like you said, performative allyship. I made that point, and I can't stand that shit. I can't stand it, because the money's being put out to throw as if the community, the Black community, is a victim. And I to a point, but then again, there are people like you don't want to be victims. You want to don't worry about head of the table or getting in to go ahead and be a part. You're going to make your own thing, and fuck them for not putting you in.
Yes, but one thing
chip on the shoulder, man.
I agree, but there's one thing that you, as a white person, have to understand. I am an aberration. Jay-Z is an aberration. Kanye West is an aberration. For every one Kanye West, there are 100, other white people that are able to do those same things at a much lower level of effort, due to the fact that, and even if you look at some of the stories of the individuals that made it, what they had to do to make it is horrible. Jay-Z had to sell drugs for years to create the capital to be able to become the person that he
And he shouldn't have had to do that. Correct.
Exactly. And that is the issue. That's the issue. Why do we have to do these other things? Because opportunity is not given to us in an equitable fashion, which is why, for instance, I myself had to also start another business to be able to start this business. I had to create the capital. I had to create the relationships. I had to create all my opportunity. I saw friends around me that were white that did not have to do those things, because historically they have a much different familial history than I do, due to the fact that hundreds of years ago, they were not in the same bondage as my people. And so therein lies the issue, is that, yes, you can make it. It's possible. It's like hitting the lottery. Yeah, you can hit the lottery, but how many tickets did it take you? Because for a lot of us, it takes it's unbelievable what it takes.
But you
I'm
know what?
speaking from first person.
I'll say this too. You've heard of the guy Rich Dad Poor Dad, Guy Kiyosaki?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. One of the things about him, and it really does make the sense. I don't think it's so much about. By the way, and for the record, I'm Cuban American. I'm a minority, much like anybody else. So just for the record, I mean, you know, I could tan pretty good. I'm just saying.
Okay.
But
Okay.
You didn't know, and that's okay.
Okay, that's fair.
The other thing I was going to say is, you know, it's not so much where it's a target of I think it's just the makeup of somebody. It's the status. And it's those who are not rich are the ones that are always going to be, you know, it's going to be discouraged. That's what it comes down to. Is the money, the establishment money, the institutional money, right? It doesn't go down to the right people. And it's not fair for anybody, as a matter of fact. And that's why I come across, I don't think it's just directed towards a particular group. Everybody's fucked, man. All of us.
Yeah, everybody's fucked. Black people are fucked the worst and the hardest and the longest. And when things get better, it gets better for us last. Like if you really look at it, if you look at it statistically, when it's been bad for us the longest, when it is bad, it is the worst for us. When it gets bad, it gets bad for us first. When it gets better for us last. That is, all those things are statistical things, right? So yes, I do agree. As someone that is literally living that bootstraps, pick it up, even I myself recognize how immensely lucky and blessed, and so many things that happened by chance that had they not happened, I would not be here. I was very blessed to be one of the very, very few Africans born to two people with degrees. That put me hundreds of years ahead of even my own people in that regard, right? So I understand, and I do believe, yes, you can pull yourself up, you can, but we also have to recognize the reality of what we as Black people are up against and what we've been through, and the reality of the fact that it is still an anomaly for us to reach a certain level of success. There is a surprise when I still walk into restaurants that are above a certain threshold. It is often that I am in a store that is, again, maybe a little higher price, and I'm asked if I work there. That happens very, very often when I'm in nice places. So clearly,
but there is a thing where the work you did, I mean, I've read from your story. So you came from Uganda to Toronto, relocated to Boston. Little money, little privileges, but you did it.
I did.
And you know what?
Killed myself in the process.
But do you believe that? But the other thing too is that you also don't want anybody to have a free lunch. You want somebody to have. They need to put the work in as well.
Yes, I absolutely agree. But I absolutely agree. You should do the work. You have to. But we also have to recognize that in order for anyone to get anywhere, you have to have something. Like, I got lucky in that I had something. I had no resources. I had almost no money. I had almost no information, but I had certain key things. I had ability to get information. I had the knowledge of how the white system works. My parents went to school, so they knew, like, okay, if you get a degree, if you do this, they knew enough about finances and the financial system to kind of help me, guide me, get me through. So I had a little bit of a basis. Even though it was very little, I had a little bit of a basis. But I can tell you that a lot of the kids that I grew up around in Dorchester, a lot of those Black kids, they have nothing. They have no information. They have no base. Their family situation is a mess. Their households are a mess. A lot of them don't understand what college is. A lot of them don't understand the importance of information, education. They don't understand the financial system. they don't have anything to build off of. And I would actually say that that is even an issue for most people in America, is that it's hard to build something off of nothing. And for us, we're just building off of the least.
Now, Muyinza, let me put it like this too, because also what people don't also, because also in the corporate sense, they don't understand. They just see a color and that's it. I can understand that part. But in my perspective, I'm in South Florida, and I notice, first of all, when I look at you, you know, they talk about the phrase African American. You're legitimately African American. You came from Africa and you have come in as American now. But everybody else that's in America that is given that label, that's not the case. And in the same case for a lot of black people in my area, you know, we have Haitian, Jamaican, Bahamian, Trinidadian, Cuban. Believe it or not, we have, you know, if you're Cuban, we have Cubans came in that were black and Chinese and just whatever you want, melting pot. It was wonderful. I never got to be, but I always wish I could always be, you know, I never got to go visit where my parents came from, and it's unfortunate. But the thing is, there are different diversities of all. And I just see for myself, when I see people coming from other countries, that's more the plight, as so much, not so much from the color of the skin, it's the upbringing, because coming into, you know, not being born American and coming in here and making it on your own. Those kind of stories, that should be uplifting people up. And I think, you know, when we always talk about Americans, you know, we're a little bit lazy overall and don't want to put in the effort.
Yes, also. But what does that say that I, as an immigrant, can come here? I, as a black immigrant, can come here and be more successful than
pretty damn smart.
My own black people here, though. Like myself as someone, I was educated outside of the country. I came from a country that would seemingly with actually less resources. I came from a country with less resources, but then am more successful than the people here, right? So that even goes to say that systemically here, that exemplifies the issue, because I can say that all of the reasons why I'm successful are because I was not thwarted, or I was thwarted. Actually, let me actually say this. So I moved to America when I was 13. Mm-hmm. So all of the things that I have come to find thwart the success of Black people didn't start affecting me here until I was 13. And having lived a life where I don't deal with those things and where I do deal with those things, I can say that there is, I can say that there is definitely a lot of things that happen to the Black American mentality as far as how you're treated and the things that you're fed about yourself that definitely change the way that you move and what you think you can even achieve here.
I agree.
Because
the discouragement is disgraceful.
Yeah. So when I came in here, I looked at it as like, okay, I can do anything. Mm-hmm. Right. And so I just tried. And again, I had a basis of information to springboard off of. And I had always been in great public school systems. I've been very lucky in that regard. The school system in Uganda is very, very arduous. So when I came here, it was not very difficult for me to perform well in school, which is really the thing that saved me, because I just went from scholarship to scholarship to scholarship. But I found that because we moved here and we moved to a rough Black neighborhood in Boston, Dorchester. And what I saw there blew my mind, because I was years ahead of the kids that went to Dorchester Public School, which are the kids that became, my neighborhood friends. I was years ahead of them.
Yeah.
Emotionally, mentally, intellectually, all of these ways, because of what they had been fed about who they are and the horrible circumstances of the hoods of America are oppressive to any mind to an unbelievable level. And so all I saw were just hopeless versions of myself that didn't know what to do.
Yeah.
And that's what the hood is, and that is a hangover from slavery, from bringing us here. They didn't give us any information. They didn't give us resources, and it's still pervasive. You can still see it, and so and that's really the thing. It's just that it's just the level to which it is difficult for anyone is true. I 100% believe that. It's difficult. Everyone should have to do what they have to do as much work as you can. However, if you are Black, it feels and statistically shows you every day how difficult that is. And that's the part that is tiring. That's the part that's exhausting. And that's the part that, quite honestly, I've seen keeps a lot of us from reaching our true potential.
And that's where I think there's a distinguishing factor is that, the word racism gets thrown out a lot, but I really feel like when I look at systemic and institutional, it's oppression more than it would be racism. I think it's just oppression of a group of people. And obviously there are going to be some people that absolutely color is a determining factor. I don't doubt that, but I'll tell you, I wish you were out there talking to a lot of young Black people and letting them know, look at what happened to me. Like, you don't have to feel hopeless. So it's like, and it doesn't have to be something that has to be heard in church. It's like, I love the way you talk here. Talk about another route, a pipeline of you to be successful. You should be inspirational speaker.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's actually what, that's what I'm working on, is to show that there are other ways to do this. Because,
write a book,
quite
man.
honestly.
Write a book, please. You should. You got a great story. I mean, there's so much to be said.
Right. Well, I mean, the thing is yes, it does help for them to see me, for them to hear, for them to see that it's possible. But at the same time, there does need to be systemic changes to ensure that it shouldn't be this difficult. Like I shouldn't have had to go through what I went through to be as successful as I am.
No, you shouldn't
because
have. But what it is, Muyinza, is separating the signal from the noise. So much fucking noise going on. Mainstream media, establishment, those people that are up at the top of buildings, say for any major cable or major broadcast network or any digital entity that's out, or any establishment, traditional broadcast entity, music labels. Movie studios across the board. That's what it is. That's why we have rehashing and retooling of old content, because people will not let the news stories come to the door, because there's lots of stories to be told. And God forbid those people make money, because then those people are left out. It's like, that's what they want. It's a power and control grab. It is stupid. Now, let me get back to Business to Community, the article I talked about before. They also wrote all the way back from I Like to Buy the World of Coke. That was a 1970 or 71 campaign that Coke did, which was all about diversity, equity, inclusion. And, from the commercial to today, you can clearly see stand-on examples of diversity expressed in advertising. Savvy marketers are also demonstrating brand diversity in social campaigns. Once you've established an inclusive culture that values diversity and equity, public relations can play a critical role in communicating your culture and beliefs. What do you say about that?
I absolutely agree with that. Well, I agree with that to a degree. I actually think that's the way. I think everything needs to look how it actually is. And right now, for a long time, it hasn't looked how it actually is. Yeah. Representation is easily one of the most important aspects that has been missing as far as the media. And I think that is also part of systemically the issues that we deal with, because by everyone not seeing themselves, they don't believe in what they can achieve to the full extent that they can achieve it. So if you include people, they'll do more, they'll work harder, they'll see themselves as part of the success of what America is. But currently, and what has been for a long time, is that a lot of people felt left out.
Yeah.
And so they didn't participate to the full extent. because it's not about me. I'm not included in what this is. But as inclusion continues to grow, we'll see a growth in esteem. We'll see a growth in inclusion. Even voting, people, inclusivity in the imagery of in the media surrounding voting definitely helps people feel like, okay, I'm a part of this. This isn't something for them. I'm a part of this. So I think it's the way forward, personally.
But one of the things when it comes to voting is also it's lesser two viewers across the board because, firstly, I'm not a I'm not a big proponent of federal government and federal intervention. I don't like what's being done. I don't like a lot of politicians, much if any. I just don't.
Fair, yeah.
But now, I want to steer the conversation to what the media companies are doing as a result of what's been going on. So, first of all, I want to just ask the flat-out question. Do you think media companies, the establishment media, are they capable of creating an organic environment of DEI and the makeup of management, content creators, and production teams behind the scenes? Because my thing is, if they try, I also believe there's going to be a selective type of method where they're going to bring people on that can be manipulated. And, the people that are going to try to, the ones that are going to come in, if there are content creators, people that come into the management positions or join a production team, screenwriting or, whatever, writing crew, they might fight really hard to try to get their ideas, thoughts, and beliefs in it, but they're still overwhelmed by a majority that's not there. So, organic environment, what do you do? Do you need just to create a majority of more blacks and more projects, and that's what will overcome it? Or just what do you think is the answer?
Yeah, that is the answer. It's that. So for instance, I have a friend that, I'm not going to say his name because, he has a good job, but he is in the position where he can essentially give out jobs. He is a black person who was born into professional privilege, and so he inherited his parents, particularly his father's company, and so he's able to now employ people in the media space. But he is the only, aside from his partner in the business, the only black people, and so he still has to kind of appease the white people and can't really go all the way in doing what he wants to do and helping out black people because of the balance of the room. He's still outnumbered. And that pressure of there's an odd pressure put on, I actually think this is any minority, but there's a pressure put on particularly black people where if you are put in a position of power and then you do things for black people, you're looked at as though you're cheating or that you're doing something nefarious. And so a lot of us will tend to, like you said, a lot of us will tend to become exactly like what the system has been. And some of us just become exhausted by the fight and just, assimilate all together. And I've seen that as well. And so,
but here's the thing. I do believe there's a lot of people that have seats on the table. But again, this is where my concern is. Sure, outnumbering to get the narrative that should be going out there. But I never felt like there was a point where content, that was made by those that have, power and influence that are black. I don't ever thought there was a lack of it, because if I could name off, movie directors, I could think of Steve McQueen, Ava DuVernay, Anton Fuqua. When I look at television, I can think of Courtney Kemp. I can think of, just lost for a second, Shonda Rhimes. And I just think to myself, there's a lot of power within some of these content creators now that are getting themselves out there. Yeah. Why does it, if the management stays out of the way, are there just, did it definitely be management? Should it definitely be all aspects of the company, of the corporation?
Well, yes. So let's use Ava DuVernay as an example. and this is the other thing too. I want to make sure that we're.
And Jordan Peele, I meant to mention him in the directors as well.
Yes, so all of these people, again, are aberrations. Because if you look at it number-wise, even those, say, 20 people you just named, there are 200 white ones I can name right now. You know what I mean? And again, that is the issue, that numbers thing. But then
they shouldn't just be white, but I also think they shouldn't just be black as well. I think we should have different ethnicities, different persuasions, all of that. I agree. I want a melting pot.
Yes, I agree. And so this is the thing. If you want that to be the case, then you have to diversify those rooms in a way that's in which the power is equitable. Because, for instance, Ava, although she is a director and she has certain powers, she's still under a white-owned company. So she still has to appease that white-owned company. The only real person that can literally do whatever they want is Oprah
Winfrey.
No, not even Oprah. Oh my goodness, his name is escaping me. The gentleman that created Medea, he just opened his own.
Tyler Perry.
Yeah. Tyler Perry, yes. Tyler Perry is one of the only people with real power. He owns his own studio. He owns his own means of production. He owns everything. That is. It
was also the first one to actually get production studios back open after the pandemic, as a matter of fact, way before Hollywood.
There you go. So that's the thing. So he has that power, but everyone else is still in a room or under the thumb of a white person. That's still what it is. Because if you go to the top of the company, it is a white person. At every single one of those companies, it is a white person. And so that is the issue. You have to have equity in these rooms in order for equity in decision, in order for equity in opportunity, in order for equity in viewpoint, and vantage point. It's really the only way, because we've disagreed in this conversation because we are two different people. We're living two different lives. We look differently. We're different heights. We live in different states. We've grown up in different countries. We have different names. Therefore, we perceive the world differently. We move differently. And we're not going to agree. We've already disagreed on certain things in this conversation.
That's okay. I prefer that we're not completely agreeing. It's okay. It's a good, healthy debate.
Yes, I agree. And so that's the thing. In order for real conversations like this to happen, as they're happening one-on-one, there has to be rooms where there are people open, and there are individuals like you and I that are open to hear each other and listen, and also back each other up in our ideas. And in order for that to be, the perspectives in the room have to be diverse to hit everything.
Next week, I will conclude my interview with Muyinza Kasirye right here on the Broadcasters Podcast, and we'll do much more. Happy Halloween for all of you out there. Obviously, if you're going to go out there, be safe, be careful. And until next week, remember, content is king, and the control of your content is in your hands.
Thank you for listening to the Broadcasters Podcast, presented by broadcasterspodcast.com and kingofpodcasts.com. The Broadcasters Podcast is brought to you by kingofpodcasts.com/Amazon. If Amazon is good enough for the King of Podcasts, it most certainly is good for you. kingofpodcasts.com/Amazon. And don't forget to check out the King of Podcasts wrestling program. The Wrestling is Real podcast, exclusively at kingofpodcasts.com.